The silver lunar insignia felt heavier than it ever had before. Liora Vale stood beneath the black stone arches of Blackridge's great hall with 300 wolves watching her, and one folded scrap of parchment hidden inside her sleeve. The healer's handwriting had changed the shape of her future only hours ago. 6 weeks. Strong heartbeat. No complications. She had meant to tell Caelan after the assembly. Now Alpha King Caelan Voss stood before the Pack Council in his war-black coat, silver eyes cold with the control he carried into battle. Lady Everly's Marrow waited 10 feet to his right in Frostfang white. Queen Mother Seraphine watched from beside the throne. Liora knew something was wrong before Caelan spoke her name. Blackridge survived the Northern War because every pack in this hall accepted sacrifices it did not choose, he said. Peace will require the same. A murmur moved through the chamber. The alliance that joined Liora Vale to the crown was made in wartime. The conditions that required it have changed. The words were not loud. They did not need to be. Liora felt the child inside her as nothing more than knowledge, invisible beneath bone and blood. Yet every instinct she possessed turned toward protecting it. Caelan finally looked at her. What existed between us cannot outweigh what the crown now requires. For one suspended second, she thought she had misunderstood. Then Seraphine stepped forward carrying the treaty ribbon of Frostfang. Caelan announced that Lady Everly's Marrow would enter formal negotiations to become royal consort once the Moon Tribunal completed the dissolution of Liora's lunar status. Frostfang would reopen its mountain passes. Grain would move south. 3 northern packs would renew their oaths. Every sentence was clean, political, reasonable. That made it worse. Liora looked at the man she had shared a bed with, buried soldiers beside, and waited through 2 winters of war to see come home alive. He had reduced their marriage to a clause in a treaty without giving her warning. Caelan descended the step between them and raised a hand toward the silver wolf at her throat. The room went silent. The insignia was ceremonial. Only the tribunal could strip her legal title. Everyone knew it. But when Caelan unfastened the silver wolf before the entire court, law mattered less than spectacle. He was telling them she was already gone. Somewhere among the council's seats, a chair creaked. No one came to her defense. Not the elders who had praised her through the war. Not the nobles whose wounded sons she had treated. In that silence, Liora understood how quickly a court could learn to look through a woman once its king had done so first. His fingers brushed the back of her neck. Liora kept her chin level. Was this decided before tonight? Caelan's hand stopped. A warning flickered across Seraphine's face, but Liora looked only at her husband. Was it? Caelan's jaw tightened. Yes. Something inside her became quiet. He had known. He had eaten breakfast across from her that morning. He had asked about winter fever stores. He had kissed her temple before leaving for council. And he had known. Liora gave him one small nod. Caelan removed the insignia. The rest of the ceremony passed around her, like weather beyond glass. The Moon Tribunal would convene in 72 hours to ratify the petition dissolving her lunar status. Until then, she remained lawful lunar. She would retain her chambers and protections. A customary royal medical examination would be conducted before the tribunal. If dissolution was ratified, she would leave the lunar household afterward. Medical examination. Liora's fingers closed around the healer's note. Every royal consort studied the Crown Ward law. It did not apply while she remained lawful lunar. But after removal, a confirmed royal pregnancy could place an unborn heir under Crown jurisdiction, allowing royal supervision of the mother and later custody proceedings in the name of succession. There was one rare exception. A reigning Alpha King could waive the Crown's claim to a specific heir. In 3 centuries, Blackridge kings had used that sovereign right only twice, both times at enormous political cost. To surrender a guaranteed heir was to invite rival bloodlines to question the succession itself. Liora did not waste a heartbeat imagining Caelan would do it for her. When the ceremony ended, she was almost through the side passage when Seraphine stopped her. Liora. The Queen Mother approached without hurry. You will remain within the royal wing until the tribunal concludes. Your physician will attend you tomorrow morning." Liora met her eyes. "I am still Luna until the tribunal." "Legally," Seraphine said. The faint emphasis chilled her. "And legally," Liora replied, "I am still free to leave." Seraphine smiled. "For the next 72 hours." Liora walked away before the older woman could see her understand. Her rooms were dark when she entered. She locked the door and pressed both palms against the wardrobe until the trembling finally reached her fingers. She did not cry. There would be time for grief if she survived what came next. She pulled the healer's note from her sleeve and read it again beneath the lamp. 6 weeks. Strong heartbeat. Then she remembered the examination scheduled for morning. She remembered the Crown Ward law, and she remembered the way Caelan had answered yes. Liora opened the lowest compartment of the wardrobe and dragged out the worn leather healer's bag she had carried before anyone called her Luna. She set it on the bed. By sunrise, Blackridge would wake to find its discarded Luna gone, and Caelan Voss would not yet know that the heir his crown could one day claim was leaving with her. Liora began with what she could carry, and nothing more. Panic told her to empty drawers, take jewels, find anyone who might help. Training told her the opposite. Every extra object was weight. Every servant she trusted became someone who could be questioned. Every minute inside, Blackridge brought the royal physician closer to her door. She changed first. The green court gown came off. She pulled on plain wool trousers, a linen shirt, and the weathered coat she had worn between mining settlements as a healer. In the mirror, she no longer looked like the woman Caelan had stripped of silver before the court. She looked useful, forgettable. Into the healer's bag went bandages, needles, dried willow bark, fever tincture, food, her mother's pendant, and the small purse of silver she had earned before becoming Luna. She left every royal jewel behind. Even the wedding ring stayed on the dressing table. A knock sounded. "My lady?" a young servant called. "The Queen Mother's office sent the tribunal papers you are to review before morning." Liora opened the door only far enough to take the leather folio. "Thank you. Go to bed." The girl hurried away. One page slipped loose as Liora turned. Draft Crown Ward petition. Her breath stopped. It was not an order. It could not yet be one. Her Luna status remained intact. Her pregnancy had not been formally certified, and the Crown had no ward jurisdiction over any child she carried. But the document was already prepared for the moment those conditions changed. Her full name filled the first line. The projected tribunal date was entered beneath it. Blank spaces waited for physician certification and confirmation of royal blood. Liora checked the preparation date. 2 weeks earlier, the room seemed to narrow. 2 weeks ago, she had not known she was pregnant. Her first instinct was to call it bureaucratic caution, but the dates would not allow comfort. Someone in Seraphine's household had been preparing for this possibility before Caelan's announcement, before tonight's humiliation, before the court had been told anything. The petition did not prove why. It proved the Queen Mother had been waiting for a pregnancy-shaped door to open. Liora folded the draft into her bag. It gave Seraphine no legal power yet, but it proved she intended to be ready the instant that power became available. That decided the route. The eastern gate was impossible. By morning, guards would know she had missed the physician's examination. The western road passed 2 watch posts. The abandoned miner's drainage system beneath the lower kitchens was narrow, wet, and half collapsed, but Liora had treated enough miners to know one old shaft emptied beyond the eastern ridge. She waited until the palace bells marked the deepest hour of night. For a moment she stood beside the bed where she and Caelan had slept, one hand covering the secret beneath her ribs. Grief came sharp enough to bend her, but she gave it one breath. Whatever their marriage had been, this child would not pay for it. Then she left. She moved through servants' passages, healer's bag against her hip, hood low. Twice she heard guards and pressed into dark alcoves. Neither was searching for her. Not yet. At the lower kitchens, she crossed the frozen yard toward the old retaining wall. The drainage grate lay behind stacked barrels, rusted nearly black. Liora worked it loose with her medical knife. Metal scraped stone. A guard's voice carried across the yard. "Who's there?" She pulled the grate wider and dropped into darkness. Boots struck the paving stones above. She landed badly, pain shooting through her left ankle, but nothing broke. She dragged the grate back as light swept across the opening. "Stop!" Liora ran. The tunnel smelled of mineral water and old earth. Cold water climbed over her boots. Behind her, voices echoed once, then fractured through the branching shafts. At the first fork, she rubbed 2 drops of a scent-dulling herb blend along her throat and wrists. At 6 weeks, the child's crown pulse was only beginning, still too faint and irregular for a distant royal tracker to isolate. This small topical dose blurred only Liora's ordinary wolf scent. Stronger doses taken into the body could muffle a strengthening crown pulse, but carried risks she hoped never to face. She kept moving east. When the tunnel finally climbed toward open air, her left ankle throbbed and dawn whitened the shaft mouth. Liora crawled beneath thorn scrub on the far side of the ridge. Blackridge Keep rose behind her against the paling sky. She was still lawful Luna. No tribunal had stripped her. No crown ward claim had been triggered. She had left before anyone possessed the legal right to stop her. Liora pulled up her hood and started toward the mountain track. Back in the palace, Caelan entered her chambers after sunrise. The bed had not been slept in. Her wedding ring lay beside the lamp. The silver lunar insignia rested nearby. Then he saw the crown ward draft. Across the bottom, in Liora's hand, she had written, "You already chose the crown." Below it, "I choose my child." Caelan read the last word twice, then a third time, and the Alpha King stopped breathing. Caelan did not remember crossing the room. One moment he was standing beside Liora's empty bed with the word child burning on the page in his hand. The next, the crown ward draft was crushed between his fingers. Pregnant, she had stood in the great hall carrying his heir while he removed the insignia from her throat before half the kingdom. A coldness unlike battle fear moved through him. He rang for the guard. The captain arrived within moments. "Close the eastern crossings. Double the ridge patrols. I want every royal tracker between here and the Frost Pass moving now." The captain hesitated. "Are we hunting the Luna, Majesty?" Caelan looked up, finding her, alive, unharmed. No one restrains her unless her life is in immediate danger. Bring word to me the moment she is seen. He should have stopped there. Instead, instinct and kingship fused into the same old reflex. "And seal the border." The captain bowed and left. Caelan stared after him. Somewhere beyond Blackridge, Liora was pregnant and running from him, yet his first answer had still been to close every road she might choose. The door opened again. Seraphine entered, her eyes moving from the empty room to the petition in his hand. "So she found it. You prepared this 2 weeks ago. It was contingency work. You suspected she was pregnant. I suspected the possibility. And you said nothing. Suspicion is not succession. Confirmation is." Caelan unfolded the page. "You plan to strip her status, certify the pregnancy, and place the child under crown ward. I planned for the law to exist if it became necessary. She is still Luna, until the tribunal, which has not happened." Seraphine's expression hardened. "Then bring her back before it does." Caelan's wolf pressed against his skin. "Once the heir is certified after her removal, Crown Ward gives the throne lawful standing," Seraphine continued, "unless you intend to invoke a sovereign waiver and invite every northern bloodline to challenge a succession you spent 10 years stabilizing. The old power existed. Every Alpha King knew it. A sovereign could relinquish the crown's claim to a named heir, but Blackridge history treated the act almost as self-mutilation. It had been used twice in 3 centuries, both times followed by succession crises. "This is not about what you feel for her," Seraphine said. "It is about what survives you. Get out." She left. Far east of the keep, Liora was already learning what a sealed border meant. By noon, She had abandoned the mountain road. 2 riders wearing Blackridge grey had passed below the ridge, then doubled back. Royal trackers. Her left ankle had swollen beneath her boot. Hunger hollowed her stomach. Worse, something inside her had changed. Every few minutes, Liora felt a faint pressure beneath her ribs. Not pain or movement, but a pulse that did not belong to her. Soft, irregular, bright enough that her wolf noticed it. Crown pulse. Too early, she thought, or perhaps fear was sharpening it. She crouched beneath black pine and opened the healer's bag. The mild, topical blend from the tunnel would not be enough now. At the bottom lay a narrow vial of concentrated moonroot suppressant. She knew the warnings. Taken internally, it could blunt a young royal signal for several hours. Too much could slow the mother's heart and deprive a pregnancy of what it needed. A wolf barked in the valley below. Closer. Liora uncorks the vial. 1 measured swallow would have been safer. She took 2. Bitterness burned down her throat. Within minutes, the bright pressure inside her dimmed. So did everything else. The forest tilted. Liora caught a tree and forced herself onward. Behind her, 1 tracker stopped on the ridge. I had her. The second lifted his face to the wind, and the royal signal? Gone. Liora heard none of it. She crossed another mile through deepening snow, while her heartbeat turned slow and heavy. Her fingers went numb. The child inside her had become terrifyingly quiet. She told herself quiet was what she wanted. That was the lie. By dusk, she stumbled through birch, saw smoke beyond the trees, and tried to call out. No sound came. The snow struck her knees first. Then nothing. When Liora opened her eyes again, firelight trembled above her. An unfamiliar woman with iron-grey braids leaned over the bed, 1 hand at Leora's wrist and the other pressed low against her abdomen. "Don't move," the woman said. Liora tried anyway. "Where?" "My cabin. Mara Quill. Border healer." Mara's face stayed hard. "What did you take?" "Moonroot." "How much?" "Silence." "How much?" "2 swallows." Mara swore and reached for a wooden listening horn. Liora caught her sleeve. "My baby." Mara pressed the horn carefully against her. For several seconds, the room held only fire and Leora's ragged breathing. Then Mara looked up. The heartbeat is there. Relief hit so hard, Liora nearly sobbed. Mara did not let her have it. "But it's weak." Liora went still. "If you take that dose again," Mara said, "you may hide this child from the trackers behind you." Her hand remained over Leora's belly. "And kill the baby before they ever find you." Mara Quill did not let Liora leave the bed for 2 days. The healer's cabin stood above Greyhaven, a settlement wedged between pine ridges and an old trade road where nobody asked too many questions about strangers. "You stop the suppressant," Mara said on the 3rd morning. Liora sat wrapped in a rough blanket beside the stove. "If I stop, they can track the child. If you continue, there may be no child left to track." Mara did not soften the words. The instinct that had carried Liora through the drainage tunnel still screamed, "Hide, move, trust no one." But the weak heartbeat in Mara's listening horn had changed the shape of fear. "All right," she said. It was the first time since leaving Blackridge that survival required her to do something other than run. Mara burned the remaining moonroot concentrate. Liora watched the blue flame consume it and felt both relief and terror. By the end of the week, she could stand for an hour without shaking. Her ankle remained swollen but usable. She told Mara her name was Liora Vale, close enough to answer naturally, and far enough, she hoped, to survive questions. Mara did not ask whether it was true. "What can you do, Liora Vale?" "Heal." "That is a claim. Show me." Her first patient was a miller's boy with a fever and a mother who took one look at Leora's young face and asked for Mara instead. "She looks barely old enough to have buried a cat," the woman muttered. Liora swallowed the insult. Once, servants had cleared rooms when she entered wearing lunar silver. Here, respect would have to be earned. She examined the boy, found the rash beneath his hairline, smelled the sweetness in his breath, and asked what he had eaten. By sunset, she had identified spoiled winter grain and treated the fever. The boy improved by morning. His mother returned with 2 loaves of bread and an apology she could not quite speak. Liora accepted the bread. After that came a hunter with an infected hand, a pregnant woman with swollen feet, then an old wolf whose cough had lasted through winter. Liora worked until nausea forced her outside between patients. Payment came in copper, eggs, dried meat, or nothing. She had never been poorer. She had also never known exactly which parts of her life belonged to her until now. At night, though, every horse on the road woke her. Beneath her own heartbeat, the other pulse grew steadier. Far west, Caelan stood in his mother's administrative chamber with the draft petition open between them. The original Moon Tribunal had never ratified the dissolution. Liora had vanished while still lawful Luna, and without her presence the hearing had been adjourned rather than allowed to turn absence into judgment. Seraphine therefore had no Crown Ward jurisdiction over the child. For 4 days, Caelan had traced the paperwork around the abandoned hearing. No single document was illegal. That was what made the pattern worse. A clerk had prepared a contingency filing. A royal physician had held private consultations. Household trackers had been quietly reassigned. Each action fit within Seraphine's authority as keeper of the royal household and former regent. Together, they suggested preparation. They did not yet tell Caelan what she had prepared for. "You built this before the assembly," he said. Seraphine closed the ledger. "I prepared for several outcomes. You prepared for Liora to be pregnant. I prepared for the dynasty to continue. You used my household without informing me." "Our household," Seraphine corrected. "The same machinery I have run since before you were old enough to hold a sword." Caelan's jaw tightened. He had let her run it. Wars, borders, pack rebellions, those were what he considered a king's work. Palace medicine, ceremonial law, household appointments, tribunal scheduling had seemed secondary. Seraphine had built influence out of everything he had dismissed as administration. "Did you know she was carrying my child?" "I suspected." "How?" For the first time, Seraphine paused. "There were signs, enough for me to prepare." "That is not an answer." "It is the answer you are entitled to today." His wolf surged, but Seraphine remained calm. "You want someone to blame because she ran. Blame me if it gives you comfort, but I gave you a political plan. You were the man who stood before the court and carried it out." The words struck because they were true. Caelan had no answer. That night in Greyhaven, the full moon rose over the eastern ridge. Liora woke before midnight with heat spreading beneath her ribs. Not pain, pressure. The child inside her seemed suddenly bright, a second presence pushing against the silence. Mara was awake at once. "Do not take anything," she warned. "I know." Liora gripped the blanket and breathed through the pulse. Miles away, on a ridge above the trade road, a royal tracker reined in his horse. His wolf lifted inside him. There, faint but unmistakable. A royal heartbeat where no royal heartbeat should have been. The tracker turned east toward Greyhaven. The royal tracker reached Greyhaven before sunrise. Mara saw him first from the cabin window, a grey-cloaked rider asking questions at the lower road. Liora needed only one look at the Blackridge wolf stitched at his shoulder. "He found the pulse," she said. "Then you have minutes, not hours." Liora packed her healer's bag, bread, water, and the wool cloak Mara shoved into her hands. Her ankles still ached, but she could ride. "Take the river path west," Mara said. "Cut south at the gorge." Liora gripped her arm. "If they ask, I found a sick girl in the snow. That is all I know." It was a lie Mara had chosen for herself. Liora forced herself to accept it. She left Greyhaven on a borrowed mare before the market woke. By mid-morning, 2 sets of hoofbeats had sounded behind her, then disappeared among the pines. Liora pushed the mare harder. She did not know whether the riders belonged to Caelan or Seraphine. Blackridge colors meant only one thing now. Someone believed they had a right to take her back. The river path narrowed beside a steep gorge. Ice glazed the stones. Her mare stumbled, recovered, then shied when a rider emerged ahead. Liora pulled hard on the reins. Caelan Voss sat alone in the path. His royal trackers were nowhere in sight. He had clearly ridden ahead of them. For one terrible second, neither moved. No crown, no counsel. Snow clung to his dark coat, and exhaustion shadowed his face. Leora's hand went to her belly. Caelan saw it. Liora, move. I have been looking for you for 8 days. I noticed. His jaw tightened. Come home. There is no home for me where my child becomes property. No one is taking our child from you. Our? His expression changed. You sealed the borders before you even knew why I ran, Liora said. You sent trackers after me. You still think protection means deciding where I am allowed to stand. I was trying to keep you alive. From whom? Your mother? Your council? Or you? Caelan had no answer. Hooves sounded behind her. 5 riders came around the bend. 2 household trackers, 2 palace guards, and a grey-haired officer wearing the Queen Mother's administrative colors. A 6th horse carried a physician's attendant. The officer dismounted and bowed. Majestu. Caelan's eyes hardened. Who ordered you here? The man produced a document stamped with the household regent's seal. Protective Custody Authority. Lady Liora is to be secured and transported to the South Crown estate for medical supervision until the succession question is resolved. Caelan read the paper once, then looked at the officer. This seal has no lawful custody force in Greyhaven. The officer hesitated. Greyhaven lay beyond Blackridge jurisdiction. The document gave Seraphine authority over household personnel, not over Liora on foreign soil. With respect, Majesty, the heir remains a matter of royal succession. That does not turn another province into my mother's palace. Liora felt something cold settle inside her. They had known the order could not lawfully compel her here. They had come anyway. Caelan held out the document. Stand down. 3 men lowered their eyes immediately. The officer did not. Lady Liora has already endangered the pregnancy by fleeing without supervision. The Queen Mother's office believes immediate containment is necessary. She has no authority to contain her. The physician's attendant opened his case. Liora saw the syringe. No. She backed the mare toward the gorge. Lady Liora, the officer said, we are not here to harm you. You brought restraints. His silence answered. One guard reached toward her reins. Caelan moved first. Take your hand off her. The guard froze. The officer stepped forward. She cannot be allowed to run again. Caelan's voice dropped. That is a direct order from your king. 4 of Seraphine's people stepped back. The physician's attendant did not. Pale and frightened, he lunged with the sedative as though one successful injection might justify everything. Caelan caught his wrist. The syringe shattered against stone. A small medical blade flashed in the struggle. Caelan jerked. Blood darkened his side. His royal trackers reached them seconds later. The attendant was dragged down. The remaining household guards surrendered without resistance. The officer dropped to one knee. The confrontation was over almost before Liora understood Caelan had been cut. She slid from her mare. Caelan pressed a hand to his ribs. Stay back. She ignored him. Blood seeped between his fingers. You're hurt? I have survived worse. That does not make this good. Liora opened her healer's bag. Caelan looked toward the open southern road. You could leave. She knew. No border order had legal force here. Seraphine's paper did not. Caelan was not stopping her. For the first time since Blackridge, the choice was entirely hers. Then Caelan swayed. Liora caught his arm. I am not staying because I forgive you. I know. I'm staying because I'm a healer, and you are bleeding. She pointed toward an abandoned hunting lodge through the trees. Can you walk? Yes. Then prove it. She helped him forward. Behind them, Caelan's captain asked what should be done with the custody unit. Disarm them. Send them back to Blackridge. He paused. And tell my mother this. No one lays a hand on Liora Vale. Not for the crown, not for me. Liora heard every word. A week ago, he would have ordered her onto a horse and called it protection. Now the road remained open behind her. She kept walking. It was not forgiveness. But for the first time since the Great Hall, Caelan had chosen not to decide for her. The hunting lodge had not been used in years. Dust lay across the table. The hearth was cold, and one shutter hung crooked. Liora noticed all of it in a glance, then forgot the room when Caelan lowered himself onto a wooden bench. Coat off. He looked at her. If you want to bleed on the floor instead, be my guest. Caelan removed the coat. The blade had cut beneath his ribs, shallow but long. Blood had soaked through his shirt. Liora set water to boil while his trackers secured the road outside. She cleaned the wound, checked for deeper damage, then threaded a needle. This will hurt. I know. No, you know how swords hurt. This is different. He let her work. Liora had stitched him before, years ago after border fights. Back then he had watched her hands as though they were the safest thing in the world. Now she kept her eyes on the wound. After the third stitch, Caelan spoke. I knew about the Frostfang proposal for weeks. Her hand stopped. My mother said the alliance would fail if the council believed I was unwilling to set you aside. She said if you knew early, your objections would be used against the treaty. And you believed her? Yes. The answer came without excuse. So you protected the treaty from me. I told myself I was protecting you from the council. She pulled the next stitch through. I thought if I made the separation look final, the northern packs would stop seeing you as leverage against me. Liora finally met his eyes. You humiliated me so my enemies would think I mattered less. Yes. And you never considered telling me why. I considered it. That is worse. Caelan went still. You decided I could not be trusted with the danger I was already standing inside, she said. You chose what I was allowed to know and what I was supposed to endure afterward. I know. No, you are beginning to. He accepted that. Liora finished the final stitch and reached for a bandage. I thought being king meant carrying every choice alone, Caelan said. If the choice was cruel, I thought that made it mine to bear. But you did not bear it. His face tightened. You stood on a platform. I was the one you erased. He looked down. Liora wrapped the bandage around his ribs. I thought I was protecting you. I know. Her voice stayed quiet. That is what makes it worse. Caelan looked at her again. Love was never the question. What you believed love entitled you to was... Something shifted in his face. Not absolution. Recognition. He had no answer. Good. Outside, wind pressed snow against the walls. After a while, Caelan said, I will stop the Crown Ward claim. Liora washed the blood from her hands. You cannot stop a claim that is not lawfully attached. I can waive what the Crown could claim. The sovereign waiver, a right every ruler learned and almost none used. If the tribunal tries to place this child under Crown jurisdiction, he said, I can relinquish that claim. You can. I will. Liora dried her hands. A week ago, you decided my future without asking me. Yesterday, you sealed the borders because you were afraid. Now you promise to surrender a succession claim kings have started wars to preserve. I mean it. I believe you mean it now. His jaw tightened. That is not the same as trusting what you will do when your council tells you the kingdom comes first. Caelan said nothing. Do not promise me. Show me when the choice costs you something. A knock struck the door. One of Caelan's trackers entered carrying a sealed message. Majesty, from Blackridge. Caelan broke the seal and read. What? He handed it to Liora. It was a summons from the Moon Succession Tribunal, issued through Seraphine's administrative office. It did not declare Liora guilty. It alleged that she had concealed a possible royal pregnancy, endangered it through unsupervised flight, evaded royal medical oversight, and interfered with succession authority by remaining outside Blackridge after proceedings had begun. Seraphine asked the tribunal to consider those acts constructive treason against the succession. Liora read it twice. She is pretending I fled Crown jurisdiction. You did not. I left while I was still lawful, Luna. The original tribunal never stripped me. I know. Then her case begins by pretending the law had already taken something from me that it had not. Yes, but Liora saw the trap. Seraphine was no longer arguing only about the night she left. She was arguing that everything afterward, concealing the pregnancy, refusing supervision, remaining outside the kingdom, showed an intention to remove a possible heir from succession. If Liora ignored the summons, her absence could strengthen that story. Running had saved her once. It would not save her from this. She folded the summons. I can challenge it, Caelan said. No, Liora. You can testify. You can open records. You can answer for your part. She stood. But she built this case around me, so I will be the one who breaks it. For the first time since he found her, Caelan did not tell her what to do. Liora looked west, toward Blackridge. She had escaped that kingdom before sunrise because staying would have cost her the right to choose. Now she would return for the same reason. Before returning west, Liora went back to Greyhaven. She needed her remaining medicines, warmer clothing, and though admitting it irritated her, someone she trusted who understood pregnancy better than any palace physician. Mara listened to the tribunal summons, muttered something unkind about royal families, and packed her bag. That was how she came to ride beside Liora toward Blackridge. Liora returned beneath no banner. Caelan had offered an escort large enough to announce a queen's return. She refused it. By the time the keep appeared above the black pines, she rode with only 2 neutral tribunal guards, Mara beside her, and Caelan several lengths behind. At the outer gate, soldiers bowed. Lorna. Liora Vale, she corrected. The guard flushed. Lady Vale. Legally, the old tribunal had never completed her removal. On paper, she remained Blackridge's Luna because the dissolution hearing had been adjourned when she vanished. Liora simply refused to use the title. A legal technicality was not the same thing as consent. The great hall looked smaller than it had the night Caelan removed the silver wolf from her throat. Perhaps because she was no longer waiting for the room to decide what she was worth. Seraphine did not greet her. A tribunal clerk did. You have returned voluntarily to answer the succession petition? I have returned to challenge whether the petition has any jurisdiction over me at all. The clerk blinked, then wrote that down. Caelan said nothing. That mattered. He gave Liora access to the records attached to Seraphine's filing and ordered the household offices not to obstruct her. He did not call her Luna. He did not place guards outside her room unless she requested them. When she chose the old healer's quarters rather than the royal wing, he accepted it. None of that repaired what he had done. It only told her he was finally capable of hearing no. That evening, someone knocked. Lady Evelise Marrow stood outside in a dark traveling dress. No frostfang white, no jewels. Liora did not invite her in. You have 1 minute. Evelise accepted the boundary. I knew Seraphine meant to remove you from the Luna seat, she said. I knew the alliance depended on it. I agreed anyway. Liora's face remained still. I did not know about the pregnancy. I did not know about custody orders. That does not make you innocent. No. The answer was immediate. Evelise looked toward the corridor. There is something you should know. Before the assembly, Seraphine met the royal physician repeatedly, not publicly. After midnight, twice that I saw. I thought she was ill. When? During the 2 weeks before Caelan announced the Frostfang agreement. The same 2 weeks as the draft Crown Ward petition. Liora felt the first piece shift against another. Why tell me? Because I helped open the door, Evelise said. I will not pretend I did not, but I will not help her bury you behind it. Then she left. Liora did not trust her. She did not need to. A clue could be useful without becoming forgiveness. The next morning, Liora went to the royal infirmary. Caelan had authorized access, but he did not accompany her. The physician appointment ledger was ordinary at first. Fevers, injured guards, prenatal examinations, elderly counselors. Then she found Seraphine's name. 4 private consultations, all before the public rejection. No diagnosis was recorded. Liora turned to the dispensary ledger. Most entries were familiar: willow bark, feverwort, silverleaf, moonroot. Then one name stopped her: Astabane distillate. She read the dosage twice. It was not a fertility tonic. It did not support pregnancy. In royal bloodlines, carefully administered Astabane heightened scent response and could make a weak crown pulse easier to detect for a short period. She checked the date. 3 days before Caelan stripped the insignia from her throat. The entry carried no patient name, only an office authorization. Household Regent. Liora did not touch the page for several seconds. This was not proof of the whole plan. Not yet. It did not tell her who received the drug, whether Seraphine personally ordered it, or what the physician had been told. But it opened the next question. Why had the Queen Mother's office needed a substance designed to sharpen a royal pregnancy signal before anyone was supposed to know a royal pregnancy existed? Footsteps sounded behind her. Caelan stopped at the doorway rather than entering. You found something. Liora closed the ledger. I found a question. What question? She looked at him. Did your mother know I was pregnant before you rejected me? Caelan went still. I did not. I know. That answer hurt him. But this was no longer about hurting him. Liora laid the draft petition beside the appointment ledger and dispensary entry. 3 separate administrative acts, none conclusive alone. Together, they pointed backward. Seraphine had not simply prepared after Liora became inconvenient. She had begun looking for an heir first, and if that was true, then the timing of the public rejection may have been designed to remove Leora's legal protection before pregnancy could be formally certified. Get me the physician, Liora said. Caelan did not ask why. He nodded once. Liora looked down at the dates again. Seraphine had known enough to prepare for her child before the child's own father knew it existed. Now Liora intended to find out exactly how. The royal physician refused to meet Liora privately. By noon, word had reached every administrative office that the Moon Succession Tribunal would hear Seraphine's petition formally. The physician sent back a single answer through a clerk. He would testify under oath, not before. Liora spent the afternoon in the healer's quarters arranging dates, not conclusions. The draft, Crown Ward petition, Seraphine's private appointments, the Astabane entry. Each piece raised a question, but she refused to force an answer the evidence had not yet earned. A knock came at dusk. Caelan stood outside. May I come in? The question still startled her. Yes. He entered alone and placed a folded document on the table. Liora recognized the black sovereign ribbon before she touched it. What is this? A sovereign waiver. She looked up sharply. Caelan did not move closer. I signed it this morning. Liora broke the wax. The language was precise. The crown of Blackridge, by authority of its reigning sovereign, relinquished compulsory guardianship, residence control, and automatic custodial claim over the specific unborn child carried by Liora Vale. It did not erase the child's bloodline. It did not abolish Crown Ward law. It did not prevent the child, once grown, from choosing to assert a birthright. It simply removed the Crown's power to take this child because of royal blood alone. Liora read the final clause twice. The waiver remained effective whether she resided in Blackridge or beyond it. Your council agreed to this? No. She looked at him. Caelan's mouth tightened. 3 advisors told me not to sign. One called it political suicide. Why? You know why. She did. A king without a guaranteed claim to his own heir invited questions. Rival Voss branches could argue succession was unstable. Frostfang could withdraw support. Northern pacts might test whether Caelan's rule was weaker than it appeared. The law gives you the power, Liora said. It does not protect you from the consequences. No, and you signed it anyway. Yes? Before speaking to me? Yes. That mattered more than she wanted it to. Liora set the page down carefully. What do you want? Nothing. She almost laughed, but his face stopped her. This does not ask you to return to me, Caelan said. It does not ask you to stay in Blackridge. If you leave after the tribunal and never come back, it still stands. Your mother will fight it. She already has, Caelan continued. Seraphine filed an objection within an hour. She claims a sovereign cannot waive a crown interest while the heir's legal status is under active tribunal review. Can she win? She can argue it. That was not my question. A shadow of the old Caelan crossed his face, the instinct to reassure, to decide fear for her before she felt it. Then he stopped himself. I don't know. Liora looked again at his signature. A week ago, at the hunting lodge, she had told him not to promise. Show me when it costs you something. Now the cost sat beneath her hand in black ink. It did not erase the great hole. It did not restore the trust he had broken. But for the first time, Caelan had surrendered control without first securing the outcome he wanted. Why now? She asked. Because if I wait until after the tribunal rules, then I am only giving up power I may already have lost. He met her eyes. If this means anything, it has to be mine to surrender. Liora felt something inside her shift, not forgiveness. Not yet, but the wall she had built around every future choice no longer felt quite as necessary. Caelan turned toward the door. Tomorrow, my mother will say you endangered the heir. She will say the crown must protect what you cannot. I know. She will use the suppressant. I know that too. He stopped. Leora's voice stayed level. And I will tell them I made a dangerous choice. I nearly harmed my child because I was more afraid of being found than I was willing to trust anyone. Caelan looked back. I will not lie to save myself. I know. Before he left, Liora touched the waiver again. Caelan. He waited. If this survives tomorrow, it changes what the crown can do. Yes. It does not change what happened between us. I know. Good. He inclined his head and left. The tribunal convened the next morning beneath the moon-carved dome of Blackridge's oldest court. Liora entered, without Luna Silva. Caelan took the sovereign's seat but did not summon her to his side. Seraphine stood opposite in formal black, composed as ever. The presiding elder lifted Caelan's waiver. Before testimony begins, the tribunal must address a preliminary challenge. Seraphine rose. The Crown Ward law remains the law of Blackridge, she said. A king may waive a lawful claim. He may not erase the tribunal's duty to determine whether that claim exists, nor may a private act of guilt obstruct succession law. Her eyes settled on Liora. I therefore challenge the validity and scope of this waiver until the status of the heir and the conduct of its mother have been judged. The chamber went silent. Liora looked at the document Caelan had signed at real political cost. Seraphine was not trying to destroy it. She was trying to make the tribunal decide that the crown's right came first. And now Liora would have to prove that Seraphine had tried to manufacture that right before the law ever gave it to her. The presiding elder did not rule on the waiver immediately. The tribunal will first determine whether Crown Ward jurisdiction was lawfully approaching attachment when Lady Vale left Blackridge, he said. Then we will determine what authority the sovereign may waive in this case. Liora Rose. Seraphine watched her with the stillness of someone who trusted procedure more than people. Liora placed the draft Crown Ward petition on the evidence table. This document was prepared 2 weeks before the public assembly where my removal as Luna was announced. Seraphine did not flinch. A contingency draft, she said. Royal households prepare for possibilities. Possibilities require a reason. Pregnancy is always a possibility in a royal marriage. The answer was plausible. Liora let it stand. Then let us ask why this possibility received unusual attention. She placed the physician appointment log beside the petition. 4 private consultations between the Queen Mother and the royal physician occurred during those same 2 weeks. The presiding elder looked toward the physician. Do you dispute the appointments? No. Seraphine folded her hands. I consult physicians. Liora turned to the physician. What condition were you treating? I was not treating the Queen Mother. The chamber stirred. Then what were the consultations about? Royal health. Whose? The physician hesitated. I was instructed to examine signs consistent with an early royal pregnancy. The next door opened. Liora placed the dispensary ledger before him. 3 days before the assembly, Astabane distillate was dispensed under household regent authorization. The elder frowned. Explain its purpose. Liora kept her eyes on the physician. What is Astabane used for in royal bloodlines? In controlled quantities, it intensifies scent response. More specifically, it can make an emerging crown pulse easier to detect. Was I suffering from an illness that required Astabane? No. Was I told I was being given it? The physician's face paled. No. The chamber went silent. Liora continued. Was that dose administered to me? He closed his eyes for a moment. Yes. A murmur moved through the benches. How? It was mixed into the restorative tonic given after your routine examination 3 days before the assembly. Liora remembered the bitter taste, now not because memory suddenly proved anything, but because the physician had finally attached the anonymous dispensary entry to a patient. Here. Who ordered the test? The Queen Mother's office. Seraphine spoke immediately. My office authorized a diagnostic precaution. No crown ward action resulted from that examination. Liora turned toward her. On what date did you authorize it? The physician answered before Seraphine could. 3 days before Caelan rejected Liora publicly. So before the king announced any change to my legal status, the Queen Mother's office secretly administered a substance intended to expose the crown pulse of a pregnancy I had not even confirmed myself. Seraphine's expression sharpened. You carried the possible future of this kingdom. I acted to protect it. Then we come to protection. Liora produced the household protective custody order, taken near Greyhaven. Queen Mother, when did your office first receive formal confirmation that I was pregnant? After your disappearance. After I had already left Blackridge lawfully as Luna. Yes. Liora passed the order to the presiding elder. This directs household operatives to locate me, restrict my movement, transport me to a crown estate, and place me under physician supervision. Seraphine remained calm. You nearly poisoned yourself with suppressant. You required supervision. That happened later. Liora pointed to the drafting date. The elder read it twice. The custody order had been prepared before formal pregnancy confirmation reached the crown, and long before Seraphine's operatives attempted to enforce it outside Blackridge jurisdiction. The chain was visible now. A pregnancy-specific petition. Private physician consultations. Secret administration of a drug used to expose crown pulse. Then planned custody. All prepared before crown ward law could lawfully attach. Seraphine rose. I did not try to kill her. I tried to preserve a royal heir from a woman whose later choices proved dangerous. Liora met her gaze. Yes, you needed me alive. The words carried through the chamber. You needed me alive long enough to carry the child you intended the crown to control. You did not respond to a law I had broken. You built the machinery first, then tried to create the legal moment that would make it usable. Seraphine turned toward Caelan. Majesty, you cannot endorse this. Caelan stood. I did not authorize the crown pulse test. A murmur moved through the benches. I did not authorize the custody operation. His eyes moved to Liora. My mother used authority I left in her hands, but she used a door I opened. I chose the public rejection. I chose secrecy. I gave her the opportunity she believed she could exploit. He sat. No confession followed. None was needed. The tribunal withdrew. When the elders returned, the ruling was exact. Liora's departure had been lawful. Crown ward jurisdiction had not attached before she left. Seraphine's pre-jurisdiction testing and custody preparations constituted abuse of delegated household authority. Crown ward law remained valid, but it could not be engineered backward to justify acts taken before its conditions existed. Caelan's sovereign waiver was recognized within its lawful scope. The Crown relinquished compulsory custodial claim over this specific heir. The law remained untouched for every other case. Seraphine was stripped of household regent authority, removed from tribunal administration, and forbidden future use of the regent seal. She did not confess. She did not apologize. She simply stood while the machinery she had controlled was taken from her one office at a time. Then Caelan rose again. This time he faced the full court. I rejected Liora Vale before this kingdom because I believed being king gave me the right to decide what she could endure without her consent. No one moved. I was wrong. His voice carried through the same hall that had watched him remove her insignia. She was never mine to own. Neither is our child. Liora felt every eye turn toward her. The tribunal had not restored her title because legally it had never been removed. More importantly, no court had restored her dignity either. That had never belonged to them. The law had simply caught up with the truth Liora had learned the night she fled. Her life was hers. Her child was not a crown possession. And whatever came next would happen because she chose it. 6 weeks after the tribunal, Liora still slept in the healer's quarters. Legally, she remained Blackridge's Luna. The original dissolution hearing had never been completed, and after the succession case, Caelan formally withdrew his petition to dissolve the title. Liora still refused to wear the insignia. The law could preserve a title. It could not make her consent to live inside it. No one asked when she intended to return to the royal wing. That, more than anything, told her Blackridge had changed. The first week after Seraphine lost the household regent seal, Caelan dismantled the private chain of authority she had built around the palace. Physicians now required written consent for royal examinations. Tribunal clerks answered to the court rather than the Queen Mother's household. Trackers could no longer be requisitioned through ceremonial authority and disguised as medical protection. Caelan did not ask Liora to help him fix any of it. That mattered. He handled Frostfang himself when the alliance fractured. He met the Northern Pax without using her pregnancy as leverage. He spent 4 days negotiating grain access and returned exhausted, successful in some terms and not in others. For once, he carried the consequences of his decisions without asking Liora to carry them for him. Evelise left Blackridge before the first thaw. Before she went, she sent Liora a single note. I knew enough to say no. I did not. I will live with that. Liora folded it once and put it away. Forgiveness was not required for truth to matter. Seraphine remained stripped of every administrative office. After the tribunal ruling, Caelan used his sovereign household authority with the council formally notified to remove her from the palace and assign her residence at an old Voss estate in the Western Hills. She was not imprisoned. She simply no longer possessed staff, seal, physicians, trackers, or tribunal access through which to exercise power. Some councillors called it merciful. Liora thought it exact. A woman who had spent her life controlling succession would live long enough to watch it continue beyond her reach. The child grew stronger. So did the crown pulse. At each full moon, Liora felt it beneath her own heartbeat, warm and insistent. She no longer reached for suppressant. Mara remained in Blackridge as a guest healer and watched the pregnancy with the suspicious devotion of a woman who trusted no royal physician completely. Caelan attended the first examination only after asking. The second time, Liora invited him before he could. Small things. That was how trust returned. Not as revelation. As repetition. He knocked before entering. He asked before touching her. When she disagreed, he did not turn disagreement into command. Sometimes he failed. Once, after hearing Liora plan to ride to a village with fever cases, he said, "You are not going." The old fury rose so quickly she tasted it. Caelan saw her face, then stopped. No, that was not mine to decide. Liora waited. "I am afraid the road is dangerous," he said. "Will you let me arrange an escort?" "1 rider." "Tfo. 1. His mouth almost smiled. 1. She went. That evening, Liora realized she had trusted him to keep his word without checking whether more soldiers followed at a distance. The realization frightened her. Then it made her feel free. One night near the end of spring, Caelan found her on the western balcony watching moonlight wash over the forest. He stopped several feet away. "When our child is born," he said, "may I be there." Months earlier, he would have spoken as though his presence were inevitable. Now he waited. "If you keep becoming the man who asks instead of deciding," she said, "yes." His breath left slowly. He did not touch her, not until she crossed the space between them and took his hand. Weeks later, the council asked whether Liora intended to resume the public duties of Luna. For the first time, the answer belonged entirely to her. "Yes," she said, "but not as before." The old insignia remained locked away. It represented a position Caelan had once believed he could remove from her publicly before the law, or Liora herself had any say. He had the silver melted down at her request. Liora designed its replacement. 2 wolves stood side by side beneath a crescent moon, neither ahead of the other. At the next full moon gathering, Liora fastened it around her own throat. She was not being restored. Legally, she had never stopped being Luna. This was something different. She was choosing, for the first time, to occupy the role on terms she had freely accepted. The balcony doors stood open behind her. The crown pulse rose beneath her ribs, strong enough that Caelan felt it. His eyes dropped to her belly, but his hands remained at his sides. Liora looked at him. Then she reached for one of those hands and placed it gently over their child. His face changed at the pulse beneath his palm. Wonder first, then grief for everything he had nearly lost, then something quieter, gratitude. Liora looked across the kingdom she had once fled before dawn. She had believed freedom meant never needing anyone enough to be hurt again. She had been wrong. Freedom was not the absence of trust. It was having the power to decide where trust belonged. She had not returned because Blackridge reclaimed her. She had stayed only after Blackridge and its king learned that keeping her required respecting the freedom to leave. And this time, when Liora stood beside the Alpha King beneath the full moon, she was not there because a crown had chosen her. She was there because she had chosen for herself.